Carla, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Senator James Sanders Jr. Um,
So, Fire, you
A piece called Student Hair Hygiene.
Senator Sanders backstage until after I do the intro,
Introduce him to the senator, and they are. Am I 5 minutes?
and then bring them up right after I do the intro. And Fire, if you have the script open, you can see who needs to be on stage and sort of get them. Oh, we're live? All right. Good evening. Are we ready to rock and roll? All right, let's just do, Imani, I can't hear you. I can see your lips moving, but I don't hear any audio.
Audio.
Perfect.
All right.
Let's do this thing. So we've got 2 minutes. All right. So we've got some folks backstage, and folks will join the stage as they're ready to speak to you within the event. But we thank you all so much for joining us. I don't want to jump the gun here. We've got 2 minutes.
Well, we definitely need to give a shout out to the folks that have come on time. Thank you for being here for the 7 o'clock hour so that we can show our trademark efficiency.
That's right. I mean, we go to a lot of events, right? Especially when it comes to campaign time, that sort of, are a little soft on the time, right? Soft on the start time, soft on the end time. But I think that we like to keep time, right? I mean, I think that that's something that we like to do, and it's certainly going to be a strong part of our culture.
Well, that's speak affirming thoughts. I think the reality is that this is one of the most exciting and important elections in recent time for our city. So much rests on the leader that we choose. And so having an opportunity to talk to 4 top candidates tonight about their visions for the city's economic recovery and the role that MWBEs will play is incredible. So I'm just grateful that everyone has joined us tonight, and I'm excited for a great conversation.
I absolutely agree. So let's open it up. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome everyone to the Black Government Contracting Club's Mayoral Candidate Forum. I am your host, Kiana Beckles. I am the co-founder of the BGCC and the founder of Leverage Assessments, a city and state certified pre-employment testing firm. We are delighted that you could join us. And we created this event, as Imani just stated, to give NYC mayoral candidates the opportunity to share their vision of a post-COVID economy with MWBEs, especially Black-owned businesses. We want candidates to share how they will integrate us into the city's recovery and resiliency efforts. Let's begin by introducing our co-sponsor, Senator James Sanders, who I know is backstage. Senator James Sanders is on the banking committee and a staunch champion of MWBEs at every level. Senator Sanders, can you join us?
I trust that you get. I trust you. Okay, we'll get there. Okay, this new day and age.
Yes.
Joy to join you, Ms. Beckles, Ms. Dawson. I just want to friendly amendment. I'm the chair of the banking committee, and that is important because the next phase of MWBE have to be access to capital. The next phase has to go beyond the hope of a contract and getting it and perhaps being unable to fulfill it thanks to not having money, to having money. And if anything is necessary in this debate, it's how are we going to be putting our hands onto the money. The state cannot recover if the communities of color are not recovered. The state cannot be built properly unless we are part of the building. So I am really grateful to be a part of this operation. Even as we speak, I'm calling you from Syracuse, New York, where I have been taking a business tour. We've hit Rochester, Buffalo, and one or two other places. And I'm working my way back to New York City, but my heart has never left. And we need to develop, and we are grateful that groups like yours are going to make sure that people understand that they can't get elected unless they have some way of saying where we're going to make progress. So I'm grateful to be hand in hand with you on this. And since it's not my voice you want to hear, but their voice, I'm going to be short and say, continue to do what you're doing. Go with God. Now let's hear these people. It's good to co-partner with you.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I'm glad that your heart is with us, because our heart is always with you. So in addition to Senator Sanders, I'd like to take this moment to thank all of our in-kind sponsors who helped so diligently put this event together, which includes Leverage Assessments, Vivid Imagination, TCC Media, Loyalty Alliance, New Genesis Pathfinder, Coach Cam, Spark Colony, and the Lindsay Group. Imani, I'm going to kick it over to you. Imani, we can't hear you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I think we have sound now. We are excited for tonight and eagerly awaiting our first presenter, who is just running a few minutes behind. But I'm excited to tell everyone about our format. We wanted to do something a little bit different. There are so many times when we hear the candidates in this very adversarial kind of format where, you know, everyone's answering the same question at the same time. And we recognize that, you know, we want to know we all want to know the same information, but we want to give them a chance to talk to us one-on-one. So what we're doing tonight are 4 consecutive conversations with mayoral candidates, and they're all going to answer the same questions, time permitting. We're going to get a good 20 minutes or so with each candidate, and they are going to share their visions for a post-COVID economic recovery for the city and our place in it. So, Kiana, can you tell us a little bit about BGCC in the meantime and what sparks the need for this kind of advocacy?
Yeah, I mean, the Black Government Contracting Club is the inception of me and my co-founder, Terrell. And I think that we just got tired of sitting idly by with the events occurring last summer. There's just but so long that you can sit and be a spectator, right? And listen to business closure rates, particularly listening to the rates at which Black businesses are closing 3 times the rate as majority-owned businesses. So then comes the inception of the Black Government Contracting Club. And we are 200 members strong and growing fast. We've got members represented in approximately 20 states, which represent approximately 20 NACE codes. We are here to revitalize the cities and recreate these MWBE programs, which I think were a wonderful initiatives, but I think that there's still room for improvement in order to ensure that minority businesses, and particularly Black businesses, are doing our part to be revitalizing the post-COVID economy. That is so important, and I'm delighted that we are going to be speaking to people of color from the community tonight. The candidates that have joined us today to talk about how they see us being part of that, because we know how important it is for MWBEs to stand together at this time, and for Black small business owners as well.
to be really honed in on our economic future as a city and our stake in it. And I'm excited that we're beginning tonight's event with Maya Wiley, who is a nationally recognized justice and equity advocate running for mayor of New York. She is a city government leader who served as counsel to the current mayor, focused on civil and immigrant rights, women and minority-owned business, universal broadband access, and more. After leaving City Hall, she served as chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board and as co-chair of the School Diversity Task Force. At the new school, Maya served as a university professor, where she founded the Digital Equity Library on universal and inclusive broadband. So we're definitely picking up a theme of service here. Maya's vision for New York City is a place where every New Yorker can afford to live with dignity, and she's running for mayor to make that a reality. Please join me in welcoming Maya Wiley, everyone.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Maya. It is a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to just start off by giving you the opportunity to make a brief opening statement, or going directly to the questions tonight.
Well, I'll just say briefly that it's a pleasure and a privilege to be with you. You know, I am not both a child of civil rights activists who became a civil rights lawyer, but you know, my mother kept food on the table when I was young after my father died, because she got federal contracts to do affirmative action programs, which was her way of both being able to be a mom and take care of us and also keep food on the table, but also live her passion and still do racial justice work. So, you know, I know firsthand the importance of women, of our businesses and women in minority owned business enterprises getting contracts with government. And I look forward to talking to you about just how we're going to get more of that business done.
Awesome. And thanks so much for joining us. Can we jump right into the first question?
Absolutely.
Okay. First question. According to a survey conducted by the New York City Comptroller's Office in June 2020, about 85% of MWBEs believe they couldn't survive for 6 more months without assistance. What have you done in your career that makes you the best steward of the city's MWBE program, which awards $1.4 billion per year to certified businesses?
Mm. Well, first of all, let me just say I am a Black woman and I am running to be the next mayor unapologetically as a Black woman, as someone who believes that we need a different kind of leadership, one that pays attention to our communities, one that recognizes we have a racial wealth gap and why we have it. And it is disinvestment. But I'm also someone that, in addition to working on these issues as a civil rights lawyer and advocate for 2.5 decades, I went into city government in 2014 because I believed it had the power to be much more transformative on our issues. And I got asked to be the director of the MWBE program, and there was no budget, there was no staff. In fact, there was no program. And I'm very proud to have accepted the challenge, which is to say that, you know, we had to rub 2 sticks together, and just with some sweat and some elbow grease and a whole lot of commitment and pulling folks together, we actually got government spend up from 500 million in women and minority owned business enterprises to 1.6 billion in 1 year. And I did that without resources, and I did it when it wasn't my only job in government. And I matched it the second year. Now, I've voted with my feet in 2016, stayed engaged in government in different ways, went into academia. But here's the thing, I laid the foundation to create what is now the mayoral office for women and minority owned business enterprises, that we actually created a staffing and a staff structure. One of the things that MWB said to me, and that's how I got the work done, was convening folks who are actual MWBEs, was, look, Maya, you know, we like you, but you know, we need someone who's able to do this full time. You got a whole bunch of different responsibilities. And I agreed. So I actually went both to create the staffing. So we had some senior level staffing that was 100% dedicated. That was the precursor to the office. The other thing we did is got the first piece of legislation done that got our discretionary spend up to $250,000 when it had been like $25,000. But we also, and we did that in partnership with MWBEs, but also right now we know we have to get it up to 1 million. And that was some stuff that we started piloting when I was in office. But here's the other thing. We know we weren't doing what needs to be done for Black businesses with our MWBE program. And the way we know it is that I started the process of creating the disparity study that ultimately laid that bare. That got finished after I left government. But these are the tools that I laid in place, including getting the numbers up, knowing how to do it, but also being the only candidate in this race that's actually done it from City Hall, knows what it takes, knows where we failed, and knows where we have to pick it up and how we have to get it done now.
Maya, that is a substantive and impressive. Thank you so much. So with all that great information, let me ask you this. As the city moves towards COVID recovery and resiliency, how will your administration support MWBs and center them in the city's economic renewal?
So I love this question because this is central to how we are going to recover. We don't recover as a city if all our folks don't recover. And part of recovery is recognizing just how many jobs our women and minority owned businesses create. And our small businesses are 50% of our jobs in the city. So I have a plan called New Deal New York, where I'm going to spend $10 billion in capital construction spend in order to create 100,000 new jobs. And we've been explicit in that one, we are going to concentrate resources in our community, building things we need built and fixing things we need fixed, like public housing, like creating more affordable housing, deeply affordable. But we've got MWB goals that are going to be right up in that $10 billion spend. We are going to set it at 30%. I am going to create a New Deal czar. So in addition to the MWBE office, mayoral office, that czar is going to be a direct report to me that's going to be responsible for making sure that MWB spend happens. The other thing we're going to do, by the way, is recognizing all our businesses in Black community that may not be already certified with MWBs or but are small businesses. So we've got a grant fund. We know that we have so many businesses, to your point, is many that have said that they can't even survive 6 months. But we're creating a $30 million grant program for hard hit small businesses in order to pay back debt so that they can keep doors open and be freed from that debt to actually take advantage of the opportunities we're creating to make more money moving forward. I saw firsthand how our folks did not benefit from payroll protection program. We were trying to, as a volunteer group in my neighborhood, make sure our micro businesses, our people of color owned businesses and Black community actually got some of those funds. Didn't work because it wasn't designed for us. So another part of what we're going to do is figure out how to design, working with our businesses, programs that actually meet the needs of our small businesses. And that is a partnership that we have to have.
Okay, I think those sound like wonderful initiatives. I also want to ask you about prime contracts. Yeah. Black MWBEs receive just 0.7% of the city's prime contracts. Why do you believe this disparity exists?
Look, when I was in City Hall for the couple of years I was there, one of the things that I saw is that let's be honest, the ACOs have relationships, and those relationships tend to not work in our favor. So there's a lot we have to do to reform how those contracts are getting made in the first place. But we also have to create more of the programs, model the programs that we know work. So School Construction Authority, for instance, had a program, and that was up to $1 million where they could literally do discretionary spend and get those basically and get $1 million contracts to folks. Make sure they were also building that pipeline. So they were also taking advantage of prime opportunities being built into the fabric of the agency when it did school construction. We have the opportunity to do that through HPD. We have to create more of these opportunities. It does include getting state law changed. That is one of the things and tools that we have, and we have made some progress there. We got to get that $1 million in discretionary spend. But a big part of it is being a mayor that just says, yes, you will. I mean, there is a lot of it that's just about the attention and accountability the mayor holds commissioners to. And it also includes making sure there's a chief diversity officer in every agency, making sure that's happening internally in the agency. Got the revenue and created the offer for commissioners in our top procuring agencies to have a person whose job it was just to do that. Now, I couldn't make them take it, but I can when I'm mayor.
That was powerful. You know what? Thank you for giving us real sort of solutions and strategies for addressing that disparity that has troubled the community and so many of us individually. And speaking of community, right now, I want to give BGCC member Dr. Rajanique Modeste the floor, who has a question.
Hi, good evening. Amani, thank you so much for bringing me up on stage. It's a privilege to be here. As Amani had mentioned, my name is Dr. Rajanique Modesti. I am the CEO of Vestigia Organizational Strategies, where we focus on organizational transformation, leadership development, and DEI strategies as well. So my question to you, I'm sorry, we are, excuse me, I've got a dog in the background, I apologize.
This so, is the verse we all live in. My cat might make an appearance. So don't
yeah, just a little bit. I apologize. So I'm interested in doing business with New York City, but I've heard from my colleagues about the challenges Black small businesses face. So my question to you is, how will you make the process of awarding MWBE contracts and discretionary awards more equitable and more streamlined?
Yeah. So one thing that we have to do is make more transparent what contract opportunities are available to MWBEs, meaning, look, I know so many MWBEs were coming to me when I was in city government saying, but how do I even find out if there's an opportunity? Because this is where relationships, if the relationships don't exist, it becomes really hard and unfair for our women and minority-owned businesses. So one thing we have to do is be much more transparent about the contracting opportunities as they come along. And then I did this actually on hiring, and there's an opportunity to do it on MWBEs as well, which is to say to the agencies, particularly in categories where we know we are not making the grade, which is literally to say, show me where and how you're identifying and making sure you have MWBs in the pipeline. If it's a competitive bid where they're getting the opportunities to bid, show us that you can show how you've created that pipeline. But the other thing, and I've heard this from people smarter than I am, and I think part of my smarts is to listen to folks who know and have had the experiences with what works and what doesn't, is we have to start making sure at the front end, in addition to being more transparent about what opportunities exist to make it easier to find them, that we then have to also think about how are we designing the bids? How are we designing the process that understands the experiences of these businesses that aren't getting sufficient opportunities, so that we're designing in a more fair and just way, so that it is more streamlined, it is more transparent. Accelerator programs help. We got to make sure we've got all the right accelerator programs that are actually supporting those connections and the process to get successively where state law requires us to have a competitive bid, and making sure we're leveraging everything we can when we don't have to have a competitive bidding process. So those are just some very practical things. They just have to get done, and I think it will create more opportunities for our MWBEs.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you so much. You've done such a great job of answering our questions. We actually have one more that we want to sneak in here, and you talked a bit about it, but I want to give you the space to address it a little bit further. Comptroller Scott Stringer gave the city an F when it comes to awarding contracts to Black MWBEs. What are some additional ways we can address this glaring inequity?
You know, one of the things that I am so struck by is how important the partnerships matter. You know, like I said, you know, so many of the ways that we get discriminated against is relationship and network, right? And so a big part of this is making sure that no agency can get away with only having certain relationships, and that the city is actually doing a better job on the partnership and then the accountability to the actual numbers. Now, sometimes you have, and let's face it, every agency is different. And we've got 55 agencies in city government, and some are much more innovative than others and work harder than others. But a big part of it is tracking that, understanding where there's a legitimate barrier, like when we found out, you know, we didn't even have the same ability to do discretionary spend, for example, as the state did. So that was when we got it up to 250,000. Now we need to keep getting it up there. But the other is to say, well, finding out that the way a bid, you could break up a bid into more than one bid and create more opportunities for smaller bidders, which would get you actually more MWBEs, particularly in the prime contract. And thinking about how you take care of the other problem that MWBs have, which is the way we pay. We are new government takes too long, and what happens is MWBs have to be in a position to essentially float the government, and we have to change that, and make sure that, you know, we don't have that situation. Either we have bridge loans that are no cost, or we do other things that ensure that while the city's trying to speed up its the way in which it pays MWBs, we're not making them sacrifice because they're not getting the full access to the opportunity, and then they don't have enough resources to float the government. So they're all depending on what the kind of contract is and what the agency, all those are things that require a transparency about what's working and what's not, and making sure MWBs are at the table to share their experiences or to share what will make it more possible for them to get the contracts they so richly deserve, to get the work done that we need done.
Maya, I appreciate, you know, having a candidate that has such thorough knowledge of the issues that we face. Would you agree, Imani?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for setting our conversation off beautifully and starting us off tonight.
Well, thank you for all that you do and for having me. And I look forward to learning from you so we can do it better.
Awesome. Is there anything that you want to share in closing? Anything that we didn't ask?
You know, all I would say is, you know, in a crisis like COVID, the type of leadership we need is a leadership that says we're going to do more than recover from COVID. Because this whole conversation we're having, this stuff was broken in 2014, not just in 2021. So we're not trying to go back to the way things were before COVID. We're trying to recognize that in this crisis, we only recover if we fix what was broken before the pandemic that was COVID, and that includes the pandemic that was systemic racism. And I just want to appreciate you all for the work that you're doing, pulling this together, the leadership that calls the question and calls us to account for it, because that's going to make us better. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Be safe and well.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks, folks. We're going to take a second to get prepared for our next candidate. But before we move on, I just want to remind everyone of tonight's format. We are enjoying these one-on-one conversations with the 4 mayoral candidates, where time permitting, we're going to give each the opportunity to answer the same questions so everyone can leave with the same information. And I am particularly excited about our next candidate, who Kiana is going to introduce, because I am from Brooklyn and East New York, and we have a shared background. So let's take it away, Kiana.
Awesome. So our next candidate who's going to be with us is Joycelyn Taylor. She is proudly from Brooklyn, New York. She grew up in NYCHA housing, the Pink Houses in East New York, where her family was one of the first African Americans to move into NYCHA in 1959. As the youngest girl in a family of 9, she was taught to be self-sufficient and independent. Joycelyn is the CEO of Tailor Made Contracting LLC, a general contracting firm specializing in residential, commercial, and public works. Taylor is also the founder and chair of the NYC MWBE Alliance, whose mission is to assist minority and women-owned firms in overcoming challenges related to obtaining access to opportunities on the federal, state, and city levels. Let's welcome Joycelyn. Do we have her?
Hello, 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 ladies. How are you this evening? How's everyone doing?
All right. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much. Thanks for asking. How are you ladies doing?
We're doing well, and we're just thankful that you're with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are our inside person because you are also an MWBE certified business owner, so you know our unique struggles. And we also want to give you an opportunity to just make a brief opening statement or go directly to the questions.
Well, again, I just want to thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to have a chance to speak with the attendees tonight. As someone, like you mentioned, who is the owner of an MWBE firm, who's advocated for MWBEs, I have to say that this is one of the more exciting forums to me, and one that I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation so we can discuss not just the challenges, but the solutions.
Couldn't agree more. Imani, you want to start with the first question?
I absolutely will. And thank you so much, because there's nothing that we like more as small business owners than the best solution to a problem.
Yes.
Now, Joycelyn, according to a survey conducted by the New York City Comptroller's Office in June 2020, 85% of MWBEs believed at the time that they couldn't survive for 6 more months without assistance. What have you done in your career that makes you the best steward of the city's MWBE program, which awards $1.4 billion a year to certified businesses?
And I have to say, I know firsthand for a lot of those firms, even without the pandemic, they probably would not have been able to survive for the next 6 months, because the city of New York has not built out a program that is suitable for MWBE firms to be successful. The fact that we're talking about the city awards $1.4 billion a year to MWBEs, when we have $22 billion a year spent and a 30% goal, tells you that we're not doing what needs to be done. But what I've done in my career is that I've advocated on behalf of MWBE firms. I've gone to Albany to, advocate for an increase in discretionary spending. I've met with elected officials to talk about a lot of the challenges that I know firms are experiencing: access to capital, slow payments, not enough access to opportunities. So I know firsthand what the challenges are of these firms. And I've met with officials at City Hall to talk about it, and actually city council members to talk about how we can create legislation that will help us to really build a program that will ensure that we see results for MWBE firms.
That is so important. And as the city moves towards COVID recovery and resiliency, how will your administration support MWBEs and center them in the city's economic renewal?
That's a great question, and it's so important that they are centered in the city's economic renewal, because, listen, we talk all the time about the disparities that exist, and we talk all the time about, there being so many inequities, right? And how do you address that inequity? You address the inequity by ensuring that the dollars going into the pot match who and how those dollars are spent. So that's the biggest way we can address the inequities that we talk about all the time, because we know when we hire MWBE firms, they're going to hire people within the community, right? Those people are going to make living wages and prevailing wages. So in my administration, I'm going to support MWBE firms to ensure that they actually get access to opportunity intentionally. Right now, the way the process works for a lot of MWBE firms, they're subcontractors. It's always a notion that they don't have capacity or they don't have the ability to, take on these projects. But MWBE firms don't need capacity, they have capability. They're able to get the job done. So we need to build out a program that gives them the opportunity truly so that they can be successful. But the other thing I'm going to do is that we're going to provide grants for small and MWBE firms that are experiencing difficulties, perhaps with rental assistance. And we're also going to be able to look towards providing a graduated deposit program so that when they get opportunities, the firms are not relying on their credit or their finances to do the city's work. It's not they shouldn't have the financial responsibility. None of these firms walk away from a project with any value or vested interest. So we have to get away from that model, and we have to have the city to start taking more of a financial responsibility in their projects. I think that will be one of the key things that we can do to ensure that, you know, the firms continue to remain successful. But also one of the immediate things we could do, there's so many firms that are actually owed money by the city. How about we pay them, right? That'll help to boost the economy and keep their businesses going.
I know there's going to be a lot of follow-ups on that, Ms. Taylor. I think you're gonna get some people circling back because you just laid out some great ideas there. Now, as you know also well, Black MWBEs receive just 0.7% of the city's prime contractors. You've been in the system for a long time. I know you know how prime contracts work. Can you give us some idea why you believe this disparity exists?
The disparity exists because of the way the city operates with MWBEs. You know, we talk about firms being able to have capacity all the time. And I believe that word is utilized as a barrier to entry. Listen, MWBE firms will never have capacity at the same level of other firms because you know what? A lot of other firms benefit from hundreds of years of free labor. So we will never catch up with that. So at the end of the day, we can't keep utilizing it as a means and an excuse not to do the right thing by firms. The disparity exists because, you know, people can't find us apparently if you give them a list with our name, phone numbers, and addresses on it, right? And an email address. So we can't keep relying on other people to do the responsibility or do the work of the city to create opportunities for these firms. We have to engage the firms directly with the city, or else that disparity will continue to exist because there are so many firms that actually don't want to do business with MWBEs because they're just comfortable with doing business with who they do business with. But if the city becomes a leader in creating more of those direct opportunities, that's where we're going to see the change in that disparity.
I agree, Jocelyn. You're going to have a lot of follow-up after this because you're saying a lot. You're speaking a lot.
This is definitely your tribe. We got questions. We got questions.
Well, let's bring up another BGCC member, Brandon Baskin, owner and founder of Vivid Imagination, Inc. Brandon, are you with us?
Here. How are you?
Hey.
Hi, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Mrs. Sillers, for being here today. And thank you, Monty. Thank you, Kiana, for having me. Again, my name is Brandon Baskin. I am the founder of Vivid Imagination. We are a community-based organization dedicated to helping underserved students to develop digital literacy through coding, esports, immersive technology, virtual and augmented reality. Larger companies again and again be awarded contracts. My question to you is how will you make the process of awarding MWB contracts and discretionary awards more equitable and streamlined?
Yeah, and you know that's a great question, and we do have to streamline the processes for working with the city. Right now, even when you become MWBE certified, it's not a magic Willy Wonka ticket, right? There's still a lot of work that goes into that. And there's no process or means in which firms could just be MWBE certified and not have to go through some additional steps with city agencies. And, you know, as mayor, one of the things I'm going to work with in doing is to centralize the process for MWBEs to get access to opportunity. It's not enough to have a chief diversity officer. We actually have to carve out opportunities that will go to MWBEs. And when we do the bidding process and we do the RFP process, we can't invite 152 firms. We have to streamline and make the number of firms that we're inviting to these opportunities. We have to decrease those number of firms, and we have to create more opportunities so that firms will be able to actually see results. Right now, you have a lot of firms that are spinning their wheels, and we all know there's a cost associated with bidding for a project. There's a cost associated with doing the RFP. So if we want firms to be successful, we have to streamline the process. It can't be that you have to pre-qualify with MWBE for certification, then you have to pre-qualify with this agency, you have to pre-qualify with that agency, and then when they hire another prime contractor, you have to pre-qualify with that agency. You have to go to classes over here. You almost need a PhD right now in order to do business with the city of New York. That's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. So streamline processes, make them more efficient. Let's talk about the results that we want to see, and then build a system that will create those results. You get one MWBE certification, unless there's something unique to a specific agency, that will allow you to do work with every agency, having to jump through so many additional hurdles to see success.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Shout out to East New York.
Yes, shout out to East New York.
The East is definitely in the house today. I got to pick that one up for sure. So you were so passionate, Joycelyn. I want to give you an opportunity to circle back on some things that you said. Comptroller Scott Stringer gave the city an F when it came to awarding contracts to Black MWBEs. Kel Surprise, unfortunately. Can you give us a little bit more about how you'd address that glaring inequity?
Yeah, you know, listen, I've gone to Albany to advocate for the increase in discretionary spending. I've gone to so many different networking events and had so many different meetings. And one of the things that I've said is that we, you know, it's like field the dreams, right? They said, if you build it, they will come. The reality of the situation is that the city has not built out an efficient MWBE program. So, you know, how I'm going to address that is that I'm going to build out that program. I'm going to make sure that intentionally we create opportunities for MWBEs. It has been very challenging and frustrating to see what firms are going through. And there are so many firms that are suffering in silence because nobody wants to make it seem as though their firm doesn't have capacity. We have to start changing that language about how we engage with firms. Going forward, we need to talk about the fact that firms have capability. They're able to do it. And based upon what we know they're capable of doing, how can we create opportunities for them to be successful?
So you've shared so much with us tonight, and it is incredibly inspirational to have a candidate that knows the ins and outs of the program so thoroughly. Is there anything that you want to say in closing, aside from the questions that we've asked? Is there anything else you want to share with us?
I would just want to say to, you know, everyone that's watching, that everyone that sees this, that I hope that they'll think, you know, long and hard about who they're going to support in this race, because we have to support people. You know, we look at political experience, but we have to support people going forward who know what our lived experiences are. Because if we don't do that, we won't see different results. You know, a huge part of why I got into this race is because I have the lived experience of having to deal with a lot of the policies, you know, and procedures that have been implemented that just don't work. And if we want to change that dynamic, I implore you to start supporting, you know, different candidates. Political experience is great. but the lived experience, the knowing firsthand is what's going to really create change for us. And I just want to say, I thank all of you again for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, Joycelyn, it was our pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the courage to run your candidacy. There's nothing like an independent person that is beholden to no one.
Yeah. What did Shirley Chisholm say? I'm
boss and on board. Oh, you got the language. You already know. Brooklyn for sure. I just want to take this moment to encourage everyone to understand how the voting process has changed in the city. We now have a ranked choice voting format, which actually allows you to pick candidates that might not, be the traditional one, because each vote that we cast, up to 5 candidates, has power. So if you're not familiar with the ranked choice voting process, please definitely familiarize yourself. There's a ton of information and resources there, and it will make us stronger as a community. I want to say thank you and goodbye to Joycelyn. Again, we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And now, before we get to the next candidate, we have a few minutes, and we're going to take some time to introduce our organization, Black Government Contracting Club, with a little more depth. I want to hand it over to our co-founder, Terrell J. Brown, who's been an instrumental part of getting this evening organized. Terrell, over to you.
Hey, Imani, again, thanks for that. Of course, thank Kiana. You guys are both doing a fantastic job. I'm trying to keep up with both of you, so thank you. Would like to also, thank Senator Sanders for being an MWB pioneer, a sponsor, all of the mayoral candidates who made the time to speak with us. We definitely appreciate it. And most importantly, the attendees, because without you, we would not be here. And that's why we formed this organization. So, of course, my name is Terrell J. Brown. I'm the co-founder of the Black Government Contracting Club, and I'm the Chief Investment Officer and CEO of Loyalty Alliance, CEO of Non-Bank Lending at Loyalty Alliance, and we finance government contractors. But the reason why we formed this organization, one is we know the different issues within government contracting, so we formed this to build an ecosystem of Black businesses where we can create, build, and sustain wealth within our own community by practicing group economics. So what the Black Government Contracting Club do is we help companies pretty much from start to finish win contracts, but also we work with local, state, and federal agencies as problem solvers to be able to solve a lot of these problems. And knowing when they work with us that the firms within our ecosystem have capacity and as well as capabilities. And quick thing, I forgot that. So I do want you to know, if you want more information about becoming a member, go to www.blackcontracts.org. We can't do this without you. We're growing a member base. We're rapidly growing. So if you want to sponsor, be a part of it. This is an action-oriented organization. Problem solving, and that's what we're here to do. And right now we have some of our programs. We have the accelerator program where we take companies literally from inception in terms of helping them do market research all the way to winning contracts or partnership opportunities. So either direct procurement with government agencies or a partnership with another organization. We have some committees, our membership committee, also our opportunities committee that we're growing and building out. And we'll also have a super accelerator program. So again, we happy you guys are here. Looking forward to continuing this and working with you. And so without no further ado, I'd like to pass it over to our head of culture, Coach Cam.
Thank you, Terrell.
No problem. Thank you.
Terrell, thank you for that transition. So you guys may notice my accent's a little bit different. I talk a little bit slower. Brooklyn is definitely well represented. I'm not from Brooklyn, but my favorite rapper is. So I'd like to take a moment as we transition to our fireside chat to really just spotlight or take a second to address how I found the Black Government Contracting Club and the power of, I think collaboration and unified movement. So I found the Black Government Contracting Club organically on social media. And, as an entrepreneur and small business owner myself, I do understand that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go together. And as I began to learn more about the values of the Black Government Contracting Club, the second piece I'd add is like anything else in life, you take out what you put in. And so, it is, it is a working group. It does require sweat equity. But what we're building is intended to be sustainable and to be, a benchmark for building out legacy.
I'm so glad that you could share that experience, because I think it's important for folks who are listening to understand the value for members, right? And understand the value of membership and understand the value of working together, right? And so we've got some other members who are going to join us, yeah?
Yeah, so we have a pretty amazing fireside chat panel just to facilitate conversations, from stakeholders, also those who have equity within the Government Contracting Club.
Okay, so let's bring some of our other members to the stage.
Hi, Coach.
Hey, Dr. Modesta, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Hey, it's 85 degrees here in Texas, so I'm good.
Oh, you know what? Don't make us jealous now. We are, although it actually has warmed up in New York, no more freak snowstorms for us.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That snowstorm we had in January, y'all can have all that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I am glad that it's no longer winter and spring is finally here. So that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, Dr. Rajanique, since you joined us, can you tell us a little bit about the benefits for you of working with other Black entrepreneurs in this kind of environment?
Man, listen, I probably can't say enough and speak just super positively about the experience that I've had so far. I mean, I can tell you the story of how I met up with Kiana, and then once I knew that she was, creating a club for Black people and to help minimize the disparities that most Black people face when trying to get into business, particularly government contracting. There's already at least 16 million hurdles that you got to face, but then, to then try to add that to getting into government contracting, there's just a wall as high as the Great Wall of China trying to break into, government contracting. So when I found out that she and Terrell had created a group, I was like, I need to be on board. I want to be around like-minded people and people who are going to help me not just grow, but help me, as far as learning about the business, teaching me on things, what to do and what not to do. So learning from other people's experiences has helped me tremendously in getting as far as I have today. I don't think I would have gotten as far without the help of, Coach Cam, Kiana, Terrell, Imani, and a few other members, being in this space with, such beautiful entrepreneurs and wanting to go further together. So I'm all about the group economics. I'm all about a collaborative, tribe where we help each other out. We pour into one another. It's a give and take reciprocity here. So I'm so grateful to be a part of such an organization that, you don't feel like you don't feel like you're beating a wall with your head until it's bloody, just to try to, get somewhere. So I think, but I know without this group, I would not have, been able to reach out to my PTAC counselor, get my WSOB certification going, and just knowing some of those intricacies that I didn't know had I not have been a part of this group.
And listen, shout out to PTAC and all the resources that are available to help us, sort of traverse this maze that is government contracting. I know for me, one of the biggest parts of this community has been about the fact that there's a camaraderie and there's inspiration on so many different places and platforms. And Coach Cam does an inspirational clubhouse. I don't know how many people are on Clubhouse now, but there are government contracting conversations happening there and Black government contracting club conversations. Coach Cam, can you tell us a little bit about your daily clubhouses?
Sure. So, what made, I think, me the natural fit for the coaches are for BGCC, we created a social movement called Current Future Millionaire. We launched it live in real time on Clubhouse. And the vision essentially of Current Future Millionaires are really what you're hearing echoed from all of these small business owners and entrepreneurs. It's, not necessarily worried about your net worth or how much money you can put your hands on at this very moment, but understanding that there are some doors that can only be open with capital. And so as we were on this pursuit to build capital, to build generational wealth, we can also transition into lifestyle entrepreneurship. And so, the amazing part of building the ship is you get to wherever you want to on that ship.
Listen, nothing like a little 6 a.m. inspiration to get you going and set your day. It's almost like for people who need that, like that tune, that spark, whether it's Beyonce or listening to entrepreneurs, you could come get a little bit of that for sure. I am so amazed at what we're building as a community. And we are here to talk to these candidates, and we have 2 additional candidates that'll be coming on today. But right now, we are taking a moment as we await our next guest, our next mayoral candidate, to talk about the importance of community, building community, and what Black Government Contracting Club has done for all of us as members. And I want to throw this question out to Kiana and Terrell, our intrepid co-founders. Do you guys have a vision for Black Government Contracting Club not only being a source of, information and inspiration, but ultimately a source of partnership? Can you tell us a little bit more about your vision for the future of the club?
Kiana, you want me to go? I'll go and I'll let Kiana add to it. So Imani, again, thank you. We're happy that you are a member. But the organization is about collaboration, partnership, capabilities, as well as capacity. So we've been forming a lot of partnerships with other organizations, Black organizations, MWBEs, government agencies, because at the end of the day, we are a solution provider. And we know that there are many, many challenges right now and prior to COVID, but definitely during COVID. So as we continue to grow and expand, we have different, large partnership opportunities that's in the work in a pipeline that's, kind of confidential, we can't talk about, but that's really the whole purpose of this, so that we can give not just our members, but also others opportunity and access to resources, information, capital, so that we can definitely change a lot of these inequities. Because right now in this country, we really need true leadership and true accountability. And that's what this club is all about. Again, we are very action oriented, and, you hear different things in terms of messaging about Black businesses or MWBEs not having capacity. That just has not been my experience. I've dealt with a lot of seasoned professionals who are the, top and best at their craft. And that's what we want to ensure entities and institutions that they will receive in working with a Black Government Contracting Club.
I think that was a great summary. I'm gonna take this opportunity to do a little plug for our accelerator program, which I think is one of the solutions that we're proposing. I've seen other agencies do pipeline programs, and I think that they can be very effective in targeting directed resources at entrepreneurs on their journey to government contracting. So we are doing the first pilot iteration of our accelerator program this year, and we'll be building that program out larger and stronger for next year.
Oh, let me just add to that. We are building it out, most importantly, with stakeholders, cooperation and collaboration. So we've already spoken to several different institution, government agencies, because the way that the programs are designed right now, they put them together and then they have stakeholders and people trying to figure it out, as opposed to getting the stakeholders and understanding their problems and then bringing that all together. So we're doing it, the other way, as it should be done in terms of doing that. So if you are a stakeholder or potential partner, definitely reach out to us after this and we can figure out how we can collaborate.
I'm excited.
Sorry,
please go ahead, Coach.
Oh, no, I apologize. Last thing I'd add to the accelerator, what really makes it a value is it really does become a pipeline or a journey experience that Dr. Modeste talked about, right? So there really is, the finite end of knowledge. So it's not like there's an end point, but no matter where you are, where you're starting your way off, you may be a 9-to-5er who's fed up and is building out your exit strategy to leave your 9-to-5. You may be just getting your feet wet, starting in business and just having a ton of questions. You may be in the ugly stage, right? So people talk about, when you build something that is ugly, it's painful at the beginning, ugly in the middle, and beautiful at the end. And, I think that the most amazing part about this accelerator is we have folks at every single stage that are nurturing and providing value and providing resources for each other.
There is nothing like support. And I have to say that what struck me the most, we've had some really powerful presentations thus far, but when Senator Sanders said that what MWBEs and Black MWBEs in particular need is access to capital, that, that was like ding, ding, ding. It was like a bell going off because, as a community, we're used to doing so much with so little. But imagine what we could do if we actually got a fair access to funding and judged based on the merit of the work that we can provide and not necessarily like our personal credit ratings. Terrell, I know that you are in the lending business. Can you give us a little insight on that process and any suggestions for people to kind of make the best with what's available now?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great question, Imani. Always equated to it. If you have a car, no matter if it's a Honda or a Bentley, if you don't have gas, you can't go anywhere. And that's what access to capital is to a business. So some of the things I think, especially small businesses, I think they go about it the wrong way. Truly, they should be reaching out to their credit unions as well as their community banks and having a relationship with them. Oftentimes they have a relationship with the too big to fail banks, and they're just too small for them. They really don't take their account serious. So develop with a community bank, credit union, and maybe a regional bank. And then you should have an alternative lender such as us that can help you scale and grow. We are probably the largest lender in the space. We lend from about $1 million to $250 million, and we have a suite of different products. So most entities probably have one product or so, and that necessarily may or not fit depending where a company is at within their growth cycle. However, get educated, about finance. And we're doing a lot of workshops. So as a business owner, definitely educate yourself, and your financial structure is extremely important. And as you going out in capital and having access to that information, your documents, et cetera, and that's part of being a member of the government contracting club and accelerator program. We make sure you have all those things together so that you can you have a tight profile and a package for lenders to consider. And you need to, it's a marriage. You got to make sure this is the right lender for you, short, mid, and long term. And so some of the city contract programs, they are good in their sense, but they need to be innovated as well because they're just almost like a bank. So the contract finance program. So that we have a lot of work to do on that side. And Imani, I actually want to ask you a question because you've been so good to us and you've been doing a fantastic.
Okay, it's my turn to answer a question now. Go ahead, lay it on me. I love questions.
Yeah, Imani, with your experience just being in there right now during COVID, especially, our community, the Black community has been affected. What is your experience in dealing with the Black Government Contracting Club? And two, how do you feel like government agencies can utilize in terms of communicating to the Black community and using Black firms to actually help them get, COVID testing, vaccine testing, et cetera? What do you
So I guess you decided to pay me back with like 3 questions in one. but it's fine. I'm always up for a challenge.
That's why
I will say, first of all,
that's
the
why you have
most
a degree.
okay, now we just throwing out. Listen, that degree was forged in East New York, okay? East New York made. But I will say the most important part of our connection and the Black Government Contracting Club is just knowing that there is a community of people who gets it. They get how frustrating this process could be. You know, just walking the walk as an entrepreneur is challenging enough. And then when you decide on a direction, figuring out how to, you know, to establish like best practices and make it work for you. You know, when Joycelyn was talking, I felt the strength and resonance of what she said as an MWBE. Like, I am relatively new to the process, and I like to think of myself as someone who can think on my feet and to be nimble and adaptable, which is, you know, sort of forget about entrepreneurship. That's like the black girl survival guide. Like, be able to pivot, right? How's your pivot? So having this community and then just being in a space where everyone has something to provide. We have complementary skills. I'm somebody that, you know, could talk forever and love communications and building with people in this way. But then I get to meet a Dr. Rajanique who can help me understand organizational development from a professional way, or someone like Coach Cam, who is literally like, I need to have him there to bounce ideas off of, right? He is like an astute brainstormer and understanding of just business, but also like human nature in general. And of course, you and Kiana, who are, for all of your work in here, you have been very generous with the club, with your time and talent and expertise, and really making it grow. And the fact that we were able to come together as a community and decide that we want better for Black small business owners, we want better for MWBEs, we want better for anybody who is a little guy trying to make their way in this space. And so I think that we are doing an incredible job. COVID has been particularly difficult, and being part of the club and having our weekly meetings and the camaraderie that we've developed has been a large part of, you know, the upside for me. Like, just being part of this group, getting to know people beyond like their business names and what they do, seeing their human side and coming together to do great work. So I think the city made an effort to support MWBEs, but I feel like the system itself needs to be changed. And that's part of the reason why we're having this event tonight. Like, we need to talk to people who have the courage to do things differently and recognize that we are a viable part of the city's economic engine, and there needs to be a plan for us. So I appreciate everyone who has agreed to join us. We are actually awaiting our next candidate, Eric Adams, who is going to be talking to us about his vision. And we're just kind of talking in the meantime about ours. Like, what can we do as a community to make sure that our voices are heard? I think having this forum was a powerful first step.
Good. Hey, Imani, are you running for office?
No, I just help amplify the voices of folks who are committed to change and want to do something in elected.
I need an Imani in my life.
I wanna also say, I think that for folks who are not in the government contracting space, as an entrepreneur, folks don't realize how different and unique government contracting is from working in the private sector. And I think that sometimes from the government agency's perspective, there's an assumption that if you've been owning and operating a business for however many years in the private sector, that you should just be able to hop on over, right, and sort of transition smoothly. But it's a very unique and niche skill set that's required to work within. I think, who was it earlier that said, I think Joycelyn was one that said it, because and that's something that I've said on other panels, is that, I mean, it essentially adds up to getting a PhD. It essentially adds up to getting a whole new degree in a whole new speciality that is particularly unique to not only doing business with whether you're city, state, or federal, but also with each individual agency. Sometimes those differences can be very vast from agency to agency. And as Maya also mentioned, the relationships are so different. And even the practices, even though the practices are the same, sometimes how they implement the practices can be very different across agency, right? And there's a lot of learning curve, even if you're in the government contracting space, moving from one agency to another.
Yeah, no, I want to touch on that, Kiana, because people don't realize the government contracting is complex, but it is very lucrative. If you want to get government cheese, get it the right way. The U.S. government is the largest consumer in the world. They spend $500 billion every 12 months by the calendar. New York City, about 90 billion. The state, 100+ billion. Maybe 150 so. So that's close to maybe 200 to 300 billion just in New York City and state, right? And this last COVID, the American Rescue Plan, 1.9 trillion has been already allocated with President Biden. 350 billion has went to local municipalities, counties, and states. So definitely, if you're not into government contracting, you should definitely get into government contracting. But again, this last 12 months has been one of the greatest wealth transfers in the history of mankind. And Black companies should definitely share in that wealth because our communities are affected and you already have the skill set. So now, definitely, if you need in terms of information, resources, access, that's why we are here to be able to collaborate with you.
I also want to talk about using the unique expertise and lived experience of Black entrepreneurs to solve problems that exist in our very own communities, right? A lot of the spending this year is going to come down to COVID testing and vaccination centers and sites and things like that impact our communities. And I think that if we can be available to provide those solutions, we can be very effective and very impactful because nobody knows us like we do, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'll piggyback on that again. Some of the growth areas, part of that is COVID testing, vaccine testing, COVID distribution, COVID build out, but also IT support, e-learning, data management, call center, and logistics and food supply. So all the schools, the homeless shelters, et cetera, the restaurants, a lot of these companies are getting, sole source, no bid contracts, and they're not even subcontracting to other companies in the community. So restaurants that are affected negatively, that's our disadvantage. They do have food. I was just talking to one in New York earlier.
Terrell, I'm sorry, I am going to interrupt you.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that great information, but I am thrilled to share that we have Eric Adams here, who is joining us to take us through his vision. And I'll just quickly remind everyone that tonight's format are one-on-one conversations with our 4 mayoral candidates where if they have the time, they will answer all of our questions. Thank you so much to the team for this robust conversation about the BGCC. We call it the BGCC, but the Black Government Contracting Club. And I want to urge everyone watching to take a moment and visit our website, blackcontracts.org, to learn more about us. And I also want to take this moment to introduce our next candidate, Eric Adams. Like so many New Yorkers, our next candidate, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, grew up with adversity and overcame it. Educated in New York public schools, he's a distinguished public servant who served as a police officer, state senator, and since 2013, Brooklyn Borough President. Eric's vision for New York includes making structural changes and using smart management to create efficiency and reduce inequality, building a stronger and more equitable economy, and desegregating our schools. He's also planning to significantly expand school and instruction options. So I want to take this moment to welcome Mr. Eric Adams to our stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm just loving the name of your organization. And we are going to become the best of friends when I become the mayor of the city. I want us to do a follow-up meeting to learn more about Black Government Contracting Club because it's so important for us to understand the power of governmental contracts. So I want to follow your format. Tell me what to do. I know how to follow rules, and just tell me how to flow.
We love that you know how to follow them and how to make them. So we want to start by offering you an opportunity to just make a quick statement to folks, or we can go directly to the questions.
Okay, give me your definition of quick, and I'm gonna follow that.
2 minutes.
Okay, there you go. There you go. I always bring my own alarm clock. Yes. So let me lay the foundation on how I got here. This is a 24-year journey. I didn't wake up and decide I wanted to be mayor. It happened 24 years ago, the actual journey. But I started in law enforcement after being arrested by police, beat badly by police officers. Civil rights leaders asked me to go into the police department to just fight from within. This was the same year Eleanor Bumpurs was shot and killed by Sullivan. Reluctantly, I did so. I was a computer programmer, and I wanted to become Cisco qualified and open my own firm. But as God would have it, I went into the department and I was able to use my computer skills. I was part of the team that created the first real-time model of fighting crime. Different city, 2,000 homicides a year, 98,000 robberies. We all had no radio signs on our car windows and Benzie boxes. And we were able to take policing from being reactive to proactive to predictive. We have a lot to do in the police department, but we were able to bring down those predatory crimes. I learned then that our city was dysfunctional, and we had to change how we do business and stop creating crisis for each other. Spoke to Bill Lynch. He says, Eric, you have an associate's degree. You can't run for mayor. No one's going to goddamn listen to you. You need to go back to college and get your bachelor's. I went back and got my master's. He said, you're a sergeant. You need to become a lieutenant. I didn't stop there. I became a captain. He said, you need to be a state lawmaker. I became a state senator, first Black to chair Homeland Security and Racing and Gaming in the state. He said, you need to become the borough president or a congressperson. I'm the borough president of the borough of Brooklyn. And now it's time to fix the city. And as we engage in this conversation, you're going to see the direct correlation to what you're fighting for and how they've been hustling us for years. And I'll stop there.
You know, we can have a whole other panel on the police space, and hopefully we will have some of that time. But for the sake of time today, I'm going to start into the first question that we have for you. According to a survey conducted by the New York City Comptroller's Office in June 2020, 85% of MWBEs believe they couldn't survive for 6 more months without assistance. What have you done in your career that makes you the best steward of the city's MWBE program, which awards $1.4 billion per year to certified businesses?
And you always have to, is there time? Give me the rules on answering questions. 60 seconds, a minute and a half.
Well, this is a conversation, okay, Eric. Right. Listen, we Brooklyn here. We all Brooklyn. So it's all up. But we want to get to as many as possible. So if you could keep your answers to a minute or two, that would be great.
Okay. You know, we do so many forums, you know, you just want to follow the rules. So the entire MWBE process, you have to do with the things that are within your span of control. The mayor's office control the procurements and the contracts. And it's funny, the controller has issue in F, but you know, when I speak to my folks in the MWBE space, they talk about how long it takes to get contracts paid, how long it takes to get it through the controller's office. So, you know, we need to say some of those alphabet letters to talk about what is actually happening in the controller's office as well. But I make sure in all of my ULERP, which is within the power of my office, that my recommendations I attach that we want to see your MWBE. How are you ensuring that you are looking at women and minority-owned contracts to make sure that we are sharing the wealth, I like to say. But there are things we can do in City Hall that we're not doing that I am going to ensure you that we will be doing.
Well, that is certainly reassuring, Eric. And as we as a city move towards COVID recovery and resiliency, how will your administration support MWBEs and center them in the city's economic renewal?
Well, I believe in the Ross Perot mindset. He became a multi-billionaire from governmental contracts. And I'm going to be judged on how many Black and brown people I make millionaires based on how I utilize the power of the city. We have a $22.5 billion procurement contracts for goods and services. Day one, I come into Borough Hall. I'm coming in with the chief diversity officer. That same day, I'm reaching out to all of my procurement officers because they are responsible in each agency to determine the procurement, the RFPs, etc. I'm sending all of them communication, handing your letters of resignation, and then I'm going to make the determination if I'm going to move on the letters of resignation. Then I'm going to have a full system that will monitor procurement contracts in real time. I'm not going to play that game of waiting a year and saying, oops, we had good faith estimates. No. First month, I'm bringing you in. You're not reaching the numbers that I expect. 40% going to women and minority-owned businesses, and a special set aside for Black businesses, particularly those who are harder hit during COVID. And then month two, you're not reaching my numbers, I'm going to move on your letter of resignation. The power of MWBEs, they lie in the procurement individuals who are in charge. Lastly, I'm going to attach contracting with the entire MWB initiative. We're not going to give you your money if you're not reaching the numbers that I expected. I'm not playing with folks. We're not playing this game any longer. You will be empowered as small businesses.
Okay, I hear some strong statements there. I want to ask about prime contracts as well. Black MWBEs receive just 0.7% of the city's prime contracts. Why do you believe that this disparity still exists?
Because there's no desire, no incentive, and no proper inspection to see how things are trending. There's a reason Black preachers leave the building fund in front of the church to let you know who's tired and offering and are we moving forward. If you don't inspect what you expect, it's all suspect. That's what my mother told me. And we don't know what is happening in real time. We are waiting too long. And there needs to be a real pathway from being a subprime to a prime. We're going to create a real buddy system where people are going to have real steps in the right direction of how do you move from a prime, from a subprime to a prime. I don't want Black and brown businesses to remain in the subprime status. You can't continue and live out your life in the minor leagues. We're better than that. We can play in the big leagues, and there's an opportunity to do so if we are intentional about making it happen. There is no desire to do so. There's a real glass ceiling that is not allowing you to get to the prime level. The same folks have been eating in this city for years, and those procurement officers and the government on the city level, they have never had a desire of turning that around, and you have to be real about turning it around.
So thank you so much for that real talk. We'll just call it Brooklyn style, okay? Very direct, and laying the issues for us bare. And you said a lot of things that resonated with us. Our club for sure is looking to help our members build generational wealth. That is one of our unapologetic goals. And I actually want to give one of our members an opportunity to ask a question. I want to bring up Eric Boateng, one of our BGCC members who has a question.
You're on mute, brother.
Thank you for that, brother. Thank you for that introduction, Imani. So as she just indicated, my name is Eric Antwi Boateng, and I'm the owner and founder of Spark Colony, a content-driven digital marketing agency based in New York. We specialize in developing engagement strategies, building landing pages and websites, implementing various search engine optimization techniques, and conducting digital advertising campaigns. Now, I'm currently in the process of becoming a MWBE certified member, which has presented its own set of challenges. But thankfully, the BGCC has made it a lot easier for me to navigate the process. My question is, I'd like to start winning contracts right away. So how will you make the process of awarding MWBE contracts and discretionary awards more equitable and more streamlined?
Well, first of all, again, I started off telling you about my tech background. Part of making it difficult is for you to throw up your hand and surrender. That's part of the hustle. So there is no reason that we have to fill out a series of forms. Some of the information they're asking for has nothing to do with the request for proposal, the RFP. That is part of the game. We're going to streamline this information, have you pre-register all your information, and it's already on file. And once you have that information using one platform for all of our agencies, it's about just looking at the information that's already on file, not having you come in, reapply again. Those unique areas that must be tweaked, you just fill out just that part of those unique areas. But we want to make sure the information that's being asked for is actually relevant for the request for proposal and for the RFP that you're applying for. That is part of the game. We want to make it challenging, difficult, frustrating, so that you don't pursue, and we're going to remove those barriers. The goal must start out, how do I give you the contract, not how do I prevent you from having the contract.
That is absolutely music to our ears. Thank you so much, Eric, for your question. And thank you so
Ms.
much,
Adams.
Eric A. Y'all are both Eric A's. I know. Thank you for your answer. And you know what? While we have the floor, you spoke so passionately about like your plan to really address it. I want to give you an opportunity just to say a few more words about how to address the glaring inequities when it comes to Black MWBEs. Scott Stringer gave the city an F when it came to awarding us contracts.
Well, and it's clear that it deserves an F, but it's systemic racism. Listen, I say this over and over again. Our city is dysfunctional, and the dysfunctionality of the city, there's no urgency to turn it around because it impacts Black and brown people. And it's not only New York. Cities across America are dysfunctional. Go to South Side of Chicago, go to Atlanta, Detroit, Watts, Brownsville. People eat off of the dysfunctionality that impacts Black and brown people across America. And we're going to get it right here in New York. And that's going to cascade throughout the entire country. That's why this is so significant. If we master what we do here in New York City, people are going to watch and see that we no longer have to live in the state that we're in. What you're facing in MWBEs is no different to what 65% of Black children are facing. They never reach proficiency in the city. Same thing that 30% of the Black folks up on Rikers Island are dyslexic, never had the opportunity to participate in our city. Our cities have locked us out. And I truly believe this is a Matthew 21:12 moment. Jesus wasn't in his temple. They were doing wrong. He didn't sit down at the table and participate. He turned the table over. I'm going to City Hall to turn the table over. I turned it over as a police officer with 100 Blacks in law enforcement. I'm going to do it as the mayor. This is our opportunity. We got to get this right. If we don't, we're going to have people go into City Hall afraid to do what needs to be done and not willing to fight the right fight for us.
This is definitely a period of urgency and reckoning for the city. So thank you so much for your strong words. We want to give you an opportunity just to make a brief closing statement. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, not at all. These are your tax dollars. We're going to change how we do procurement. We have $22.5 billion in procurement. A large part of that procurement goes outside our state. We're going to spend the dollars right here in the city. These are your tax dollars that are being used to make other people have generational wealth. That stops January 1st, 2022. Eric Adams as your mayor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
That's right. And we'll see you again at that next meeting that you
Thank you for sure. Yes, we're going to follow up on the follow-up.
Because we can always use more friends.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh
what a night. Okay, what a conversation, and we're just gonna keep it going. I'm so excited. Kiana, do you want to tell us a little bit about our next candidate?
Absolutely.
Last but definitely not least.
Absolutely. I'm here and happy to introduce our last candidate, Catherine Garcia, who is a lifelong New Yorker and public servant. She has 14 years of government experience delivering services that New Yorkers rely on every day. Catherine has been the go-to crisis manager for our toughest moments as a city. During COVID-19, she created an emergency food program that has delivered 200 million meals to New Yorkers in need. She served as incident commander during Hurricane Sandy. She stepped in to protect children from lead poisoning in our public housing. Catherine knows how to build a healthier, safer, more livable New York. She's done it before and she's ready to do it again. I'd like to welcome Catherine Garcia.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Catherine, we are thrilled to hear from you and for you to share our vision. And I just want to let you know that you have the option of giving us a brief introductory statement to tell our audience who you are, or we can go straight to the questions.
Well, I mean, I feel like after that introduction, I don't know if I can outdo that one. So I'm happy to go straight to the questions.
Okay. So
let's start. Go ahead, Iman.
All right, thank you. According to a survey conducted by the New York City Comptroller's Office, June 2020, 85% of the MWBEs in this city believe that they believed at the time that they couldn't survive for more than 6 months without assistance. What have you done in your career that makes you the best steward of the city's MWBE program, which currently awards $1.4 billion each year to certified businesses?
You know, I have worked with MWBEs throughout the course of my career. I bought stuff. I was actually the one who was trying to figure out how to buy stuff and how to ensure that MWBs were in the mix and at the top of the pile and getting the dollars. And I know the challenges that we face according to the procurement rules, how hard it has been to overcome, low cost bidding, not using best value, not being able to make decisions on what really worked for the city. And we put in place programs that were changing the game. One of the big challenges was the small business services database is really awful because you can't actually find what you need in it. So we created our own with here are the things that we buy. And here we're going to go out and start to try and source from MWBEs and particularly Black MWBEs so that they can get the jobs that we're purchasing. And did a ton of outreach that resulted in, real work.
Yeah, I certainly noticed that, and that speaks to my point right earlier about different agencies having different practices, and many different agencies either have a database, some don't, and each one that does, it seems to be unique. Perhaps we're going to standardize that more now by moving to Passport. But let me, moving on to our second question, as the city moves toward COVID recovery and resiliency, how will your administration support MWBEs and center them in the city's economic renewal?
So first and foremost, we know that they need access to capital in order to survive going forward. And I have put forward a plan to make sure that we are making loans to businesses to ensure that they're here, that they survive and are part of the recovery. And then it is making sure that we are doing the outreach, getting through the city's procurement process and Passport. If you've ever been there, I'm sorry. We will make it better. It is really hard. And the city oftentimes, in many cases, also doesn't pay in a timely fashion. And small businesses and businesses that are new to city government are not prepared for the fact that, oh, by the way, we're asking you also to be a financial services company and float us some money. Nobody told you that. And that is just we almost make it so we could hurt them more than help them by giving them business. And we have to that has to just stop. When we buy things, we got to make sure that we are paying the bills. That is getting through the controller's office so that it actually does really happen. But there are also things where we are in conflict. One of the best programs was when we got to use MWBs up to $500,000 that got passed at the state level, except that there's city law that if you don't put it out on a plan in May and you need something in August, you got to wait more time. So all of the incentive goes out the window. I know where all of these pieces are that trip us up and make it so that we are not successful at getting more MWBEs the work that they need. And in the recovery, this is so critical. We want to be investing in our businesses. We want them to get the money so we have the virtuous circle. So they're hiring New York City residents so that they're growing in this city. And it is really very straightforward. We just have to say, we are going to hire MWBEs for these jobs.
That is actually a wonderful segue into our next question. And I am excited to hear your answer as someone who's actually done purchasing at an agency. Black MWBEs receive just 0.7 of the city's prime contracts. So now we're talking about the primes. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some info? Can you share why you believe this disparity exists?
It has. I do believe it's gotten better, making it so that that the subcontracting requirement was 40%. In many of our construction contracts meant that some of the folks who usually would go after them didn't want to, and gave the money more opportunity. So I saw more Black prime contractors in my last year than I had seen before. And making that change made a significant difference. The people who do the big work, the big jobs, you probably can name them. They're probably maybe 10 bid contractors in the city, and they get the work over and over and over and over again. They have huge balance sheets. It is incredibly difficult to compete with them. They know the ins and outs of our procurement process better than we do. And we have to break that cycle. And part of this is also trusting that these companies are ready to do the work, ready to make sure that it happens.
I absolutely couldn't agree more. And I want to introduce another BGCC member for another question. Dr. Preston Lindsay, are you there to join us?
Greetings.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Just really quickly, BGCC team, Sister Kiana, Sister Imani, thank you so much for curating this space. I appreciate this. My name is Dr. Preston Lindsay. I am the president and CEO of the Lindsay Group, an organization development consulting firm, broad-based OD firm, purpose to dismantling institutionalized racism and other forms of oppression by facilitating transformational systemic change using the principles of multicultural organization development practice. I just feel that we must address, the misconception that small minority and women-owned subcontractors or businesses are too risky to work with due to their size and limited resources. Although many of these companies have exactly what it takes to be successful, they aren't given the chance to compete for contracts because of this misconception. So I'd like to know how you plan to make the process of awarding MWBE contracts and discretionary awards more equitable and more streamlined.
All right, now this is an area where you can make a difference very straightforwardly when there are discretionary awards. We need to change where it's low cost, low bid, because if it's just low cost, low bid, then it is much harder for folks you can't take that into account. But I absolutely believe that minority and women-owned businesses are ready to compete. I had no issues making sure that we were hiring them to do projects at the Department of Sanitation. And you have to be sitting at the table and saying, we are going to do this, and pushing through the bureaucracy that tells you I'm more comfortable with where I've been, that I'm more comfortable with, I know, Tom at so-and-so company, he does a really good job. You can't award based on that. And in every opportunity that we had to make sure that we were doing things where we had more discretion, we did that. And we made those awards. And you have to make sure that you are providing people real opportunities so that they can grow their businesses, because we know that there has been systemic racism and that it is embedded in our perceptions and how we do business. And I would also just say we have to look at the history of this. There's a reason why some people have wealth, and they will use it to block out others.
Thank you for your response. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Preston, for one, for the compliments, appreciate you, but also for asking that question. Catherine, we have one more question that we've been asking our candidates, and we want to give you an opportunity to address it as well. You started talking about those inequities and closing the gap, and we want to give you a chance to speak a little bit more about that. Comptroller Scott Stringer gave the city an F when it came to awarding contracts to MWBEs. Can you share a little bit more about how you're going to address that glaring inequity?
Yeah, I actually believe his F was on spending, but either way, not really that important. You have to make sure that you are focused on the numbers and you are holding your agencies accountable for actually delivering on your goals on MWBEs. That you are systematically having that conversation and saying, did you tell me you were going to get to 10%? Did you tell me you were going to get to 20%? What happened? Where were your awards? Why did this award happen? That was not an MWBE. But it is about management. It is about making sure that it is really about making sure that we are doing those basic things. If you want something and you measure it, that is what you get.
Thank you so much. So we want to give you an opportunity to take a moment. We thank you for joining us and sharing your ideas and your vision. Our goal is to make sure that our members and the city at large and anyone interested in MWBEs or the economic future of the city has an opportunity to hear what you have to say and about the role of MWBEs in our resiliency and recovery. And so we just want to give you an opportunity to address any questions we didn't ask you or make a brief closing statement.
No, I'm really thrilled to have been here, and I appreciate all of your questions. MWBs have to be centered in our resiliency and our recovery from COVID. We have to change what New York City looks like compared to what it looked like in the past, and to be very straightforward and crisp that is our goal. And then we have to drive all of what we are doing through that portal so that we actually see what we have envisioned.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for responding to all of our inquiries. And thank you for sharing some of your time with us this evening.
It was a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
So Kiana, it's been a wonderful evening, but we have gotten to the close of our event and our forum. Yeah. I am so thankful to everyone who joined us. I hope that you learned about these candidates who took the time to be with us today and share their visions. And I hope that helps shape how you vote, because your vote is your power. And I also want to make a final urge to folks to make sure they understand how ranked choice voting works, because you don't have to just choose one candidate. And I think we heard some pretty compelling responses today.
Absolutely, I agree. And I'm so glad that this will be saved on our YouTube channel, right? Because we can go back and review the video. There was a lot of content shared today. And I'll certainly go back in the following days and weeks before I cast my vote to look back at some of those responses. I'm going to do a quick plug for, I mean, this is the first race that we're getting into, but not the last, right? Do you think we're going to get into the comptrollers?
I would say that anything is possible, especially with an ambitious group like this. We are the little Black government contracting club that could. So all things are possible.
Go to blackcontracts.org to become a member. There is a join the BGCC Today button. Just on the homepage, you will receive a follow-up link to the Slack channel where we keep the conversation going 24/7. Please like, comment, post, share on our various social media streams. We've got YouTube, we've got LinkedIn, we've got Twitter, we've got maybe some other Facebook.
But we're strictly business, so we on LinkedIn. Definitely check out the LinkedIn page.
Yes, absolutely. And there's more. There's much more to come. For those of you who are joining us in our sort of inception hour, we will look fondly back on these times. For those of you who are with us now, and we'll remember these times, right? They'll live on as we grow in strength and in numbers.
Thank you so much. Definitely a memorable evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. Be sure to check us out on our platforms and connect with us, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Yes. Have a good night.